Hello and good morning. Be welcome to the presentation of the new exhibition here in CCCB. Thank you very much to all the journalists that have joined us here and those following us via streaming. We have amongst us the curator of the exhibition, also Jordi Costa, the head of exhibitions, and the new chief of exhibitions. I would like to warmly thank all the teams that have made this project possible in a very difficult environment. I would also like to warmly thank the representatives of the Jeux de Paume at the Pompidou in Paris and Centroa. It's very difficult to move around in our days, and nonetheless, they wanted to join us. Thanks to Marta, Ponza, Mathieu, and Fernando Perez. Thank you very much to all of you. This exhibition is entitled Science Friction, Life Between Companion Species, and it's based on the idea that humans are not alone in the planet. We share it with a never-ending list of non-human species and other forms of life, such as fungus, bacteria, viruses, with whom we are deeply interrelated. All forms of life on Earth are interdependent, and this is the departing point of the exhibition, which is framed in the biocentric pattern that for a long time science, art, and literature has been exploring this multi-species dialogue. As you know, this is a topic that we have dealt with deeply in CCCB recently. In the exhibition about Mart that you have at your disposal, it's at the end of the process, and now we are making this explode in a big project in the context of a pandemic produced by a animal origin virus stemming from the disruption of natural ecosystems that have come here to confirm the interdependence between humans and other species. So even if the exhibition was not defined before the pandemic, let's say, today it gains a new meaning, I would say. At the times of climate emergency, the project is an invitation to think about human supremacy, and also it's an invitation to imagine new ways of living and coexisting in our wounded planet. We do so with the inspiration of two amazing authors. The first one is Lynn Margulis, a biologist, a world-renewed biologist who died, unfortunately, 10 years ago. Margulis, as you all know, meant a revolution of evolution theories with the concept of symbiosis, which means living together, and he also defined that cooperation, not competition, were the engine of human evolution. The other amazing author that have inspired the project is Donna Haraway, who calls or uses science fiction and language to come up with new worlds and invent stories that help us coexist with our companion species. Donna Haraway invites us to do so not on the basis of resignation and apocalyptic messages, but rather from patience and irony. Those who trust in art and science must do so. According to Haraway's terminology, this is a tentacular project that goes beyond living spaces, and CCCB becomes one more item of a broad ecosystem where we all depend one on another. We have an open and inclusive project before us. This is the paradigm of the interdisciplinary approach that we have always taken here in CCCB. Amongst the collaborations that we have agreed upon, I would like to underline that the project is the result of a research and a virtual project led by Maria at Jeux de Paume in Paris, and the exhibition, once again, will travel and take new forms of life at Acua Centroa in Bilbao when it ends here in Barcelona. The project includes several activities in other spaces in CCCB and in other parts of the city. Beyond the exhibition, I believe that we have been able to bond more than 60 local creators, 10 international thinkers, as well as other creation spaces in the city, such as Angar, La Capella, La Massana, or the Berga Convent. We are very pleased also to remark or underline that thanks to the project, we've been able to produce, in collaboration with Pompidou at Paris, a documentary directed by Diana Tocedo, based on a dialogue between Vincent Desprez and Donna Haraway, a French philosopher who has a very interesting dialogue with Donna Haraway. Tomorrow they will be the main characters of the first public speech or narrative that we'll have in the framework of the exhibition. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Judith, and my role here is to focus on the title of the exhibition, Science Friction, Life Between Companion Species. The title somehow calls those who know Donna Haraway's work and her tendency to play with words, to bring them to the extreme, to combine them and make them explode into some form of eruption of neologisms that make us think or allow our thinking to get to inedit places. Those who have grown under the influence of Professor Franz of Copenhagen have a passion for heterodox figures in science, what we could call the neglected of science or the evil of science, right? But somehow, oh, I'm going to remove the mask. Yeah, I think it's going to sound much better, and I'm going to be breathing much better also. Off I go. So this heterodox personalities, I don't like the negative connotation of the word evil, right? But for me, they're not evil scientists, but rather thinkers that allow you to think out of the box, that allow you to think out of hegemonic narratives and come up with new ideas, interesting disruptive ideas that are not on the or at the center of the scientific environment, but rather in the periphery. In the last few years, it's been easy to find examples of these perspectives, right? This position between science and philosophy, science and imagination, figures such as, or personalities such as Timothy Morton, who said once, by the way, it's a very funny word, communism, he said, will never be total unless they take into account bugs and bacteria, or Morton, who argues that we have to think on or about cows and all those animals should be considered an extreme form of working class. Then there's another author that has accompanied us, personalities such as the North American writer Richard Powers, in a book, El clamor de los bosques in Spanish. He comes up with a very surprising idea. It's surprising because for a long time we've been narrowed a little bit our perspective about trees. He thinks about trees as social entities capable of living together. This book, Clamor de los Bosques, allows us to think about other times and about other environments, such as the life of trees that were here perhaps before Christianism was widespread. And perhaps we should also understand that our individual minds has limitations, many more than community-based minds, such as forests. I believe that within this environment there is a parcel of thinking which is particularly interesting and relevant and extremely radical, ecofeminism. In this sense, there is a book such as Seguir con el problema, Keeping with the Problem, by Donna Haraway. I'm not sure the title is properly translated here. So it's one of the few books that you recognize right away as a transformative and disruptive book, a book that stimulates us to think towards a new reality, a new way of understanding humanity. Science Friction, the title of the exhibition, stems from the use that Donna Haraway does of the words SF, science fiction, and the acronym science fiction, SF. But she goes all the way to the end. According to her perspective, SF can be science fiction, speculative fiction, feminism, speculative feminism, situated feminism. So she plays with words, as I said before. She brings them to the limit. She combines them in impossible ways, as you will see in one of the works in the exhibition. Judith already mentioned it. Science fiction, the title of the exhibition, well, we have added an R that produces this quite surprising effect. Donna Haraway considers that scientific thinking and speculative fiction, so what writers do, what science fiction writers do, she says, is at the same playing field, so that we can enhance interactions between both fields. There is a bilateral influence between both fields. Having said that, when we were, well, these days before the inauguration of the exhibition, before opening the doors to the exhibition room, we were a little bit concerned. We thought, science fiction is is a quite heterodox title for an exhibition. Perhaps we'll have to further explain the meaning of the title. So that's why we want to insist on this playful meaning of the title. We want to make sure that we all understand it, right? I don't know what you have thought if the exhibition had the title that we have thought at the beginning. It's quite a radical title. In fact, the project in the Jeu de Paume virtual project was called Chuluse. Chuluse is the concept that Donna Haraway puts forward to overcome two words, Anthropocene or Capitalocene. Donna Haraway's thinking understands that we live in a wounded world, but she's not apocalyptic, so she puts forward this idea, this concept, to understand it as a way to think about our interactions and to put a big question mark about human beings' privilege within the creation tree, but also to reflect about, somehow, to put forward new possibilities, to open new possibilities, new games, new plays, to question us human beings, as Donna Haraway's articles always do. If you go all the way to the end of the reflection, we get to Ima Arguris, who is the one opening the exhibition. As Judith said, she's a very grounded personality here in Catalonia, a personality that somehow puts forward the idea that the main engine or pillar of evolution is the cooperation between species and the hybridation of species. And she invites us to think about ourselves not so much as individual beings, but rather as ecosystems. In Haraway's writing and thinking, as well as Imarguli's writing and thinking, there's a lot of sense of humor. There is an amazing capacity to question preconceived ideas, ideas that somehow had been neglected within our culture, and perhaps it's about time to bring them back, to infect them with new ways of thinking, more viral and tentacular ways of thinking. Science fiction is a project that we are very proud of, and we're extremely happy to have the opportunity to open this exhibition. I believe that the commissioner's work has been just amazing, as well as the collaboration between different artists around the exhibition and around the narrative that the exhibition suggests. I believe that this is quite an impressive project. Haraway's idea, according to which science and fiction are compatible and share a same ground and can live in a balanced environment, inspires the exhibition. In the exhibition, you will see interesting reflections, scientific thinking, and also works of artists that somehow question scientific realities, so-called realities. There are many objects, liminal objects, that are in between science, philosophy, and imagination. The exhibition is full with liminal objects that make us think whether this is a scientific illustration or a product stemming from our dreams or hallucinations. So nature plays an important role also in the exhibition, and we believe that nature is visionary. Many of the artists explore this idea and bring it to other playing fields. So throughout the exhibition, or while thinking about all the personalities that have contributed to the exhibition, well, if we go to a bookstore, you will easily find books by Ursula K. Le Guin. All of a sudden, new translations have raised awareness about a science fiction writer and a feminist thinker such as Octavia Butler. So this game, this play, this environment is what we want to invite you all to reflect about in the exhibition. This is not only an exhibition, this is not even an exhibition, this is a tentacular project that will, I believe, run and possess and happily infect the institution all the way down to November with amazing activities, debates, mediation activities, as well as, of course, it could not be different, fun activities and cheerful and playful activities. I will now hand it over to Maria for her presentation. She knows much better than I what the project is about.
Hola.
Hello, and thank you very much, Judith and Jordi, for your kind presentation. And thanks for inviting me to be the commissioner of the exhibition. Thanks for your support throughout the process. I would like to also extend my regards to the team, to the amazing team of professionals. This project would not have been possible, right? We're speaking about symbiosis and companion species. Without them, without my peers, this project would not have been possible. This is a joint effort. This is the outcome of a joint effort, of a joint venture, I would even say, that combines many different intelligence in a network. Thank you very much, Jordi, for your reflection. And thank you very much, Judith, for pointing out at so many elements. This makes my job very easy. I would like to underline some ideas regarding symbiosis, some ideas that are deployed in some of the works in a more clear way. So Lima Arguri's main contribution to the Gaia theory, together with James Dobloff, she contributes to the biological basis in the area of microbiology. She is well known for her work and research in the area of symbiosis. She considers it to be the main pillar of evolution. Her special contribution is the endosymbiotic theory. And briefly, the endosymbiotic theory is based on the idea that today it's been accepted by the scientific community. It wasn't when she proposed it. Well, it defines that the origin of eukaryotic cells, those with a nucleus, animals, plants, fungus, well, she says that these cells are the result of symbiotic collision of prokaryotic cells, cells with no nucleus. So she says that the evolutionary jump, the key evolutionary step forward, moving from non-cell nucleus and cell nucleus, and thus the diversity we have today, is a result of symbiotic processes of symbiosis. So this idea, which is pure evolution, this which is an idea that stems from biology, opens up to a wide range of lines of thinking where science interacts with other areas such as thinking and culture, or philosophy and culture, because on the basis of her symbiotic approach, or her approach on symbiosis, Lynn Margulis and many others defended the idea that we are ecosystems, the idea that an organism cannot be considered independent in biological terms. The idea of independent organism is more of a cultural idea than a real one. We are all ecosystems. In this meeting point between biology and philosophy is where Haraway positions herself. She takes Margulis' symbiosis concept. She reflects about this in the exhibition to make a clear bond with the work that she had been carrying out for many years around the relationships between species, the multi-species paradigm, or what she calls companion species. Haraway is well known for the Cyber Manifesto, which allows us to broaden our scope about the relationship between humans and machines. And she's a very ecological thinker. And I believe that this is extremely clear in her text, Understanding the Problem. So she brings the concept of symbiosis to all the way to symbiosis. She loves neologisms, and she speaks about evolving with. So symbiosis, in her approach, does not happen only in evolutionary terms or genetic or cell terms, but also in more cultural or even technological environments. She says human beings and all forms of life have evolved together with other species with whom we have co-evolved. For example, farm animals, and there are many works in the exhibition that deal about this point, or lab animals also. In the exhibition, this is deployed, right? These are the first two key moments of the exhibition. We start by setting the basis, the scientific basis of Margotti's thinking, and from there on we open up towards speculation and imagination, and there are all these artistic practices that displays as a start. We start with symbiosis, as I said before. And the following stage, well, as you will see, the different areas are quite permeable. There's an area on companion species, and then there's another one on what I call biochemical awareness networks. Jordi mentioned plants. This is related to fungus. Fungus are not very well known, and probably they will be the source of amazing surprises in the future. And probably for plants is already on the table regarding whether we need to consider them intelligent or not. Now, regarding fungus, there's no this debate, but plants, they have an amazing capacity of interacting between them and with other organisms, and this somehow makes us or forces us to change our traditional categories. This brings us to another area or another domain called history of the origins. And somehow this section is related to the symbiosis, where Margolid speaks about the origin of life in Earth. So if we are in interconnected ecosystems, what other stories about origins can we come up with that take into account relationships between species and that somehow abandon this narrative, which is once again a more cultural narrative, right, where evolution is a way that somehow ends with human beings. This very particular way of living, I love it because when I say particular way of living, everyone reacts. We're like the culmination of a project. Well, we're not, I'm sorry to tell you. No, we are not. Nagode says that it's better to think about evolution not like a tree, but rather like a network. And the last section of the exhibition grounds all these ideas in much more specific terms with the movement for the rights of nature and the environment. There are many items that go deep on this idea. Let me put forward that the movement gained stamina in the last decade as a result of the inclusion of the rights of nature in Ecuador's constitution. And well, the idea is to recognize the legal personality to non-human entities. This sounds science fiction, but it actually uses a tool that is traditional in law. We have non-human legal forms, such as companies. They have rights. Companies have rights because we believe they have to be protected, even if they are not human beings. We consider them to be entities. So the same applies to nature, or the same can apply to nature. What does this mean? Well, I would like to underline that not acknowledging animals' rights or trees' rights. No, it's all about the rights of ecosystems so that we can stop extractivism and mining projects. This movement is gaining a lot of stamina in Latin America. As I said before, there are many items that talk about this idea or focus on this idea. Let me conclude briefly by referring to the design of the exhibition by Alex Papalini. I really feel like knowing how you like it. I believe he's done an excellent job. It was rather difficult in the exhibition. We can find very different items in terms of the media used, the environment, so it was difficult to make them coexist in one same space by providing at the same time to each item another space to breathe and deploy itself, and at the same time allow some room for communication between pieces, between items. We don't want to be in an abstract exhibition. We are claiming for a radical grounding to specific things, and Haraway invites us to avoid abstraction and be grounded on the earth, and that's what we have tried. So, I believe that this exhibition is some sort of science museum, or like a museum of curious items, like an old museum with a pile of items that conform a narrative about the world. A science museum, a radically contemporary science museum, an ecological science museum with a biocentric approach that questions human supremacism and not only and our position in the planet. I'm going to leave it here. We have some of the artists amongst us, and that's going to be amazing. And they will be also at your disposal if you need an interview with them or if you want to perhaps deepen about their work. Good. So after listening to Maria, it's always a pleasure listening to Maria. What I would like to do is to retake the idea that has already been raised by Judith and Jordi. From the beginning of the project, we thought about science fiction as a project that went beyond the exhibition room, a project that goes beyond and opens up to a dialogue with a long list of stakeholders, spaces, creation forums, relationship forums, and learning forums inside and outside CCCB. And I believe that's what we have been able to do. Amongst us all, we have produced a project that includes debates with local and international authors, workshops, performances, cinema, family activities, educational activities, as well as digital content. Beyond all the creators, the project includes more than 60 creators, researchers, scientists, activists, local thinkers, and such abundance proves the vitality, the effervescence about thinking, the biocentrical pattern towards our closest environment, and the fascination that the personalities of Donna Haraway and Margulis arise in our environment, in our local environment. So, we believe that this is due, on the one hand, to the value that Haraway provides to the capacity to imagine, to fiction, not as a forum of representation with no consequences, but rather as a true transformative tool of the world in which we live, capable of producing new worlds. She argues that science fiction is, in fact, political theory. So this value that she provides to imagination and the transformative potential of imagination, and her claim of specific practices of what we do here today in order to transform the world that surrounds us, I believe that this has been extremely provoking, thought-provoking, and attractive for artists and creators. To prepare the program, we have taken into account three main objectives. The first one We wanted it to be a tentacular project, including all this richness, creation, local thinking, building networks, raising complicity with other creation areas such as Ankara that has been key in the articulation of the narrative at the art environment. With them, we have organized two workshops, one that will take place between Angar and CCCB, and then there's also an exhibition or a conference about biohacking and microorganisms. There's a project with Helen Torres. In the framework of the exhibition, we will be working with La Capella also, that will inaugurate simultaneously to science fiction three exhibitions, three sister exhibitions due to the content, the scope taken in these exhibitions. So we'll find synergies, we'll look for these synergies and this meeting point between artists in La Capella and those exhibited here in science fiction. We have gathered some research proposals that are working in this space, La Escucheza, such as Paula Bruna or the Duda working group, that will put together a workshop about how to learn to die differently, living and dying differently in a, well, also with. So the intention was not only to, it was about opening the workshops and making them learning environments and a way to interact between them and other actors, other disciplines, and other practices. We have thought about different pathways here in Barcelona, human and non-human environments in Collserola, Barcelona, Lleida, El Prat de Llobregat. The first will be in July the 8th with Agustín Ortiz, and a biologist of the research center. So we will go and discover lichens in order to understand what they are in Collserola, in Las Planas, and also we'll be speaking about the production ecosystems in Barcelona and the ecosystem to produce with artist Bernie Puig. There's another open dialogue program that includes activists, scientists, artists, thinkers of all sorts, poets, and this will also allow a dialogue between an organization called Remuga Bosque and another organization that fights for the preservation of wolves in Catalonia. Last but not least, as you know, Donna Haraway and Lynn Margulies are not thinkers, not easy thinkers. Sometimes it's difficult to have access to their thinking. So our will was to open their code, the code of their narrative, of their speech, to make it accessible for very heterogeneous audiences. We have come up with a program and an exhibition that can be enjoyed, I believe, by all sorts of audiences. We have also a program for children. We have incorporated Paula Bruna and her project about how to live together with species that we dislike and what form of diplomacy should we develop to interact with other species. The project will be targeting children, but also all the adults. We're also organizing a visit to the science fiction exhibition for child that includes playful activities and discovery actions. So what we have tried is to open up for dialogue, for exchange, and for dialogue between disciplines and very different people. I would like to underline a project that I believe has to do with science fiction. This project is a project within the project. There is a podcast, a sound production with José Luis de Vicente and Maria Arnal entitled Each Layer of the Atmosphere, and that deals with many of the topics that science friction deals with, many of the topics that had already been dealt with here in CCCB, as you know, with the exhibition After the End of the World that will be re-inaugurated in the autumn. Last but not least, I would like to underline what has already been said by Jordi, which is to what extent sense of humor and playfulness are key in Donna Haraway's way of understanding life. She asks for passion and permanent irony, and I believe that this will be possible. This will run the exhibition, right? A sense of humor and the permanent sense of irony. Thank you very much.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you very much to the three of you. So we have some time for Q&A or comments or reflections. Also, those who are following us through streaming, do not hesitate to contribute through the YouTube channel or Monica's cell phone. I believe you can send her a text. You can send Monica a text if you have a question. Or if you wish, we can jump right away to the exhibition. There's a comment here, Lucia. Jose Oliva says this exhibition coincides with Mart's exhibition. I don't know if the exhibition reflects also about planets and satellites such as Mars and the Moon from human exploitation or greediness. Wow. This is an interesting question. I would like to think that we are entering a new stage of the exhibition. This is one of the questions that perhaps would start building a new stage. Of course, our relationship with other planets is problematic. It is indeed. And there's no doubt that we are interested in knowing what's going to happen, right? And if we have the technological tools, as human beings, we want to go and explore the other worlds, other planets and satellites. But there are serious concerns. Many scientists are concerned about spatial pollution, right? Or the danger of importing or exporting, rather, microorganisms to other planets and thus polluting them. There are many science fiction books that deal with this point or topic. What really interests me when we think or we look outwards, well, I believe that it's interesting to look outwards in order to go back and look inwards again. I believe that as human beings, a lot has been produced in the area of culture, in the area of extraterrestrial forms of life. In fact, we don't know the majority of the different forms of life that we have here in the Earth. We don't really know the oceans and the forests that we are depleting and destroying. We're destroying them without even knowing all the plants and trees that are hosted in such forests. So it's interesting, this interest of human beings for the outside world, when in fact we don't even know the planet. So here comes my answer.
Hola.
Hello. I have, well, if anyone is interested in the idea of providing a legal personality to ecosystems, in Spain there is an initiative. There is an initiative called ILP, a popular legislative or legal initiative, in order to provide the sea in Murcia, to provide it with legal personality. There is a website. Indeed, you're right. And now there is a signature collection to make it a popular legal initiative. The recognition would allow us to start some protection measures to protect the ecosystems of Mar Menor in Murcia. Is there any other comment, remark? Is there any online question? Here's another one. Hello. When you speak about friction, we are in a consumption-based society, in a fast-growing economy. Is this a fiction or a friction regarding the philosophical I don't really understand. I'm not sure I have understood the question. When you speak about utopia, so I'm going to try and respond. I'm not sure I'm going to give you an acceptable answer or the answer to your question. What I believe is that what is utopic is that, well, is believing that this extractivism model is realistic. There's a suicidal model. Probably it is suicidal, actually. So, of course, the exhibition speaks about or opens up a long list of questions, and the fast answer could be, well, we cannot keep going the way we are going. So I believe that it's interesting to open the debate about the rights of nature. I'm not saying the rights of nature, and I don't think those that defend it consider it to be the final solution, the perfect solution. There's no such thing as a perfect solution, but at least we need to open a debate forum about the rights of nature, about the way we are interacting with nature and with ecosystems, with other ecosystems. How do we want to face the true challenges that we face? We're speaking about political, deeply political questions and challenges, but I'm not sure I'm answering to your question. Yes, you are. Oh, good.
Sí, pero yo creo que, claro, hi ha una cosa bastante...
Well, the extractivist model, one of the, I don't know how to put it, one of the most concerning things is that, well, many people are convinced that there is no alternative, that we cannot think out of the extractivist model or system. What Donna Haraway suggests, Vincent Desprez, and many others, Timothy Morton also, well, there's no such thing as a universal solution, but we can think about the different solutions in plural, different ways of working, different ways of approaching our relationship with nature. In Morton's last book, Dark Ecology, he says, well, there's an alternative to capitalism. There are ways of making it outside the extractivist model. Let's think about local economies, proximity economies. They exist. So what I believe is interesting is that the exhibition is not an apocalyptic exhibition. We're not speaking about the end of humanity. No, we're speaking about new possible beginnings opening up before us if we know how to think, or if we learn to think at different scales and on the basis of new prisms. It's not a messianic program. It's not a messianic exhibition. It's a list of proposals. And as it's been said many times today, there is a lot of room for playfulness, to imagine, to try things, and even to fail. There's room for failure. I would like to add something regarding what you said, regarding playfulness. Haraway and Desprez insist on the fact that playing is very serious, because playing plays a key role in human beings' development, but also animals use playing as a social practice. Playing is not silly. We consider it to be sometimes, but it's not. Playing is very important. So I'm told that we have to make it to the room. So let's leave it here, and we're at your disposal in case you have any other problem or any other question. Thank you very much, and I hope you're going to enjoy the exhibition.